英语听力训练也是一种修行。接下来的练习，你只可以看到单词和短句的提示，你必须用自己的耳朵听明白整段话的意思。如果没有听懂，你可以反复多听几遍。下面我们开始吧。
The Department of National Defense has been doing some work in a well-known recreational hotspot. That spot's name is the Blair Rifle Range. It's a forested area in North Vancouver, located between Mount Seymour Parkway, Northlands Drive, and the Northlands Golf Course. It's a place known for hiking and mountain biking, but back in the 1930s, it was used by the Canadian Armed Forces for military training, and that training involved explosives, some of which remain there untouched.
I've heard them exploding munitions when they found them, so I think everyone in the community has heard the bangs.
That's Donna Sakuta, the executive director at the BC Labour Heritage Centre in Burnaby. She says there's a lot of rich history surrounding the range, starting with its creation, going all the way back to the Great Depression. That's when Donna learned that the range had once been used as an unemployed relief camp.
Single unemployed men who were destitute, had nowhere to go, were living on the streets, living wherever they could, and they were basically incarcerated in these relief camps at, I think it was 132 locations across the country. And they were put to work for very little money. And they served as essentially a form of slave labor to build the rifle range for the military.
So this rifle range has what the Defense Department calls unexploded explosive ordnances, or UXOs, some of which didn't always function as intended. Some of those UXOs are still there and can be dangerous if disturbed. In 2018, they found 5 mortar shells and a grenade.
I also used to live quite close to the rifle range lines, so kind of early on in that unexploded ordnance process with the DND, I actually heard them exploding one out my back window.
Cooper Quinn is the former president of the North Shore Mountain Bike Association. They maintain trails all across North Shore, including those on the Blair Rifle Range. Recently, the Defense Department said they are extending their search until the end of March 2026, and select trails will be closed on a rotating basis while they work. But Cooper isn't worried.
That's kind of how they started their search, was on what would be probably the heaviest use portions of the network there, where people would be most likely to encounter these explosives. And so they scanned along those trail networks. And then since then, in those subsequent years, as you know, they've been kind of expanding that outward. So we don't have any major concern.
The Department of Defense told CBC that the trails in Blair Rifle Range are safe for recreation, but they're still encouraging everyone to use good judgment. They advise staying on designated trails and ask that people refrain from digging or making campfires in the area. If you see something that looks like it may be an explosive, don't touch it. Turn around and leave the same way you came, and call 911. But for now, the search continues.
There's a lot of property to search. There's a lot of trees that have grown up. I can't imagine that you can do a proper search without removing the vegetation cover. So I suspect it will continue to take time.
Ease of extraction, high demand for concrete, and the fact that sand is legal to buy and sell mean that illegal mining continues with little opposition.
Sand is a free commodity. Anybody who is strong enough, powerful enough can go and collect sand.
And it's often at the local level where exploitation starts and where so-called sand mafias operate.
It can be either a small villager who's taking sand from the beach to build his own house, right up to the point where people who have taken sand and realized how lucrative it is have risen and formed networks and gangs.
This is usually possible through bribery or intimidation.
There is just major corruption of local and regional governments in sand mining because there's very little capacity to enforce prohibitions.
Criminal activity, including sand mafias, are making headlines as illegal mining turns violent.
Hundreds of people have been murdered over sand just in the last few years. And that's been, there's documented cases of this happening in Mexico, in Ghana, in Indonesia, in many, many countries around the world, and especially in India.
I was attacked in 2004 by sand miners, and that's when it became more serious and more intense for me.
Since then, Sumaira has been campaigning against illegal sand mining and highlighting the effect it's having in India and around the world.
Well, if your houses are washed away, it impacts you immediately. Even without a catastrophe like a flood, you can see the effects because you can see the erosion on a daily basis.
Overmining of rivers and beaches means there's a greater risk of landslides and flooding, while dredging has significant consequences for fragile ecosystems.
When you do that, when you suck up the bottom of a river, obviously, whatever was living down there, whatever kind of fish and plant life were living on that riverbed, you've just annihilated their habitat, wiped it out.
New technologies could help. More concrete than ever is being recycled, and sand can be created artificially by crushing rocks. But manufacturing is expensive, and both are energy intensive. And as long as extracting sand remains cheap and plentiful, cracking down on sand smuggling won't be easy.
You need to have communities much more involved in monitoring illegal sand mining. You've got to be addressing the corruption. You need to raise awareness. And because nobody is paying adequate attention to it, it goes on and the devastation continues.
听力练习没有听明白的朋友，可以反复多听几遍。如果有需要这一段英文文字的内容，可以在评论区留言。在点点滴滴中提升自己的英文听力，英语听力练习是一场修行。那么今天视频的内容就到这里了，我们下期见。